My dad, Joe Kinkella, was a jet test pilot in the 1950s and 60s. He never crashed a plane, but he did have a run-in with a 1934 Harley Davidson motorcycle. Here's his story in his own words. Enjoy.
When I was 15, the summer I turned 16, but I was still 15 at the time, I was assigned the task of cleaning out the basement under the garage. And it was, stuff had been in there since the 20s. You know, old parts and everything. And they didn't know what was down there. So anyway, I guess to keep me out of trouble, he thought that was a pretty good project for me to clean that basement out, which I did. And I hauled a lot of stuff up. There was 1927 fenders and stuff like that, which would be worth a fortune today. But who knew? So finally I run across this box that was very mysterious. Big box. Big crate. Overseas type packing crate. And so I asked my dad, what's in it? None of your business. Just keep doing what you're doing. I said, well, do you know? He said, well, yeah, I know what's in it, but it's none of your business. So oh, okay. So finally curiosity got the better of me. After I kind of finished up everything, went and got a tire iron and a big hammer and everything, and I pulled one of the big boards loose and looked in there with the flashlight. God, it was parts of a motorcycle. But it all disassembled. And, you know, the wheels were off and the tank was, handlebars were off. It turned out, I didn't know then, it was a 1934 Harley Davidson Model 74, which had been a LAPD motorcycle, you know. So anyway, I went back and I said, Dad, I know what's in that box. And he says, you do? I said, can I put it together? He just went like that. Well, in other words, he didn't say no. Yeah. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. So I started in bit by bit. And I'd get it together, but I'd still have quite a few parts left over. So I could take these parts and I'd try things, and I could see where this washer went, or this cup, or whatever, a spring. And finally, I got down to where I didn't have many parts left. And so I ran it, got it started, took it upstairs. He said, now, you know you can't work on this on garage time. This is your separate time. Oh, okay. So I finally got it running. I'd never been on a motorcycle before. That's so that I could ride it. And every day or so, I could see where some part really should go. You know, there's a little problem area. So I got down to where there was hardly any parts left. In the meantime, I was getting pretty good on it. I had my 16th birthday. I was 16. Sheriff said he was going to shoot me if I come by his house again. No muffler on it. Ernie Graham, old cowboy sheriff. He said that in front of my dad. Dad nodded. Mm-hmm. In other words, like he agreed. He was a good friend of the sheriff's. Anyway, I went along, and I got pretty good on this old motorcycle. In the hotel, there's a picture of me and Harold Graves on this motorcycle. It's just started to sprinkle. It was getting ready to rain. And so I was going down the street on the other side of the tracks, below, on the south side of the tracks. It was all dirt in those days. And we had come up, and I went into the underpass, and because I picked him up at the service station, where I took Harold home, across the tracks, up almost to the bit where those bulk plants are. The railroad track they made a rise in the road where the tracks come across. Well, as it started to rain, they were working in this area, and when it started to rain, they quit and just left. Well, they were going to replace a rail, so they dug it all up and left a big furrow along in a ditch across there at 45, and I didn't see it until I got right up to it. Man, I hit that, and the wheel come back into the handlebar, come back into the gas tank, and I was in the air. Couldn't get it straightened away before I hit the ground, and and I can remember the houses and buildings going around when I hit the ground. I had a pair of Levi's on and a leather jacket. Of course, it just wiped this motorcycle out. So I was about 3 blocks from the house, right up the street. So I walked home, went home, and I walked in. My dad said, "Have a spill?" I said, "Yeah." "Whereabouts?" And I told him, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I got to get another pair of pants on, go get the wrecker and go pick it up, take it to the garage." "Oh, okay." Just nodded. Didn't say anything. So I asked my mother about it. I said, "I'm surprised that he never really said anything about this motorcycle." And she looked and she says, "He really couldn't. When I met him, he had an Indian motorcycle, an old Indian. He was the terror of Kingman." So he said he wasn't in a position to say anything. He was hoping that I would get through it without getting killed. Yeah, and took it back to the garage and then went home. Yeah. Had to take the tank off and rebuild the tank and pound it out and, in the body shop. Yeah. Repaint everything. Yeah. Weld the handlebars back. They were broke. And then grind them so that you couldn't see where it was welded in the whole bit. So anyway, I got it all back together, got it started, and was adjusting the idle, which you always have to adjust the idle in these old motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And there's little knobs down there that you turn. And I was letting it idle, and I was adjusting it, and then I'd run it up a little bit, back, and then adjust it a little more, run it up. Dad walked by, and he said, "That sounds pretty good. I think you've about got it." And so he went over and he reached and, "Yeah," he said, I think you've got it." So he went, come back to idle, reached over, turned it off, took the key out, turned around, walked off. He got about, 4 or 5 steps, turned around and said, "Now put a for sale sign on that damn thing."